Alright, welcome back to LAN 6340, 3D rendering with Vue, class number 6, which means we're halfway. Alright, today we're going to be looking at layered materials, a little bit like mixed materials, but kind of with a bit more of a Photoshop spin on it. Also custom dependencies, so we'll figure out what that means and how it can make your materials look even cooler. Also the plants, so we're going to be looking at the plants in the plant library and then editing those, and looking at how we can distribute them through our scene using the ecosystem painter. Well, let's get into it, eh? Alright, today I'm going to start off with a scene that should be familiar to you. This is from class number 2, when we created fractal terrains, and if you recall, I gave you a material. Okay, it was a snow mountain material. Okay, and I've done it slightly different. So you remember when we did mixed materials, we're kind of mixing two different materials based on some rules. And here what I've actually done is I've actually used just layers. So these are very much like Photoshop layers. So normally you'd have you know, a different material and would have some kind of alpha, okay, distributing that. However, you'll notice in here it's also got environment. So it's very, very similar to mixed materials. I don't know why I did it like this. I think I just kind of was my train of thought at the time. I was thinking I'm going to put snow over the top of rock, so I just created a snow layer and put it over the top of rock, and I've just come in here and just played around with it. So you'll notice that we've got all the same sort of controls that we have for the mixed materials. So if I bring this up, we should be able to see that we can restrict the amount of snow happening on the bottom half of our mountain. If the render will update. No, it doesn't want to. Come on. This happens sometimes. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now I've only got snow on the very top of my hill. Okay. Being a bit slow today, isn't it? Alright, so what else can we do with this, and why would we want to do it? Well, it's very, as I said, it's very similar to Photoshop, so it's kind of convenient. If I wanted to make this a blue mountain, not a problem. I'm just going to add a new layer. There you go. Here's a blue plastic will do, and it's going to go over the top, and it's just going to mix straight over the top. And so now my entire mountain is going to be shaded blue. Okay, and so that's just using a straight alpha. Okay, so I can give it kind of a blue hue, or I could load in a fractal or whatever. So just like a Photoshop layer. But yeah, I thought I'd show you that anyway. We can trash that. All right. Another thing I'm going to show you, so let's just start off a new scene. So let's just cancel that. We'll go new scene. Alright, so here's our new scene. Just the default is, now let's actually, we'll load in a fractal terrain. And I just want to have a look at this fractal terrain, right? So, let's just edit this. Alright, my windows have just popped over onto the wrong screen here, so I'm just going to bring those in. Alright, so here's our fractal terrain. And what I want to show you, let's just delete all this. Alright, we're going to add, let's say our Rocky Mountain fractal, so we're quite familiar with it. And we're going to collect up our altitudes. Now watch, when I connect this, now we've just been going altitude, right? So it's feeding in a position and it's giving each position in space and altitude. However, you'll notice that there were other options in there, and we can connect that up to, for example, a material. So let's see. If we go and take this, now normally you'd see in here all sorts of things like the color and the bump map and all that sort of carry on. However, because it's a terrain, the only thing we've got as an output is a custom dependency. Okay, and what that means, if it will let me create one, custom dependency, there we go. I can wire this up. Now I can wire it up to all sorts of stuff, including rough areas. And what this is going to do is it's going to identify all of the rough areas coming out of this fractal. Okay. So if you remember, we've got this roughness and all that sort of carry on. Alright, so let's just go, first of all, let's just see what this terrain is looking like, because I've been messing around with it. Okay, we might need a bit more gain. And let's drop this largest feature down and pop that over here now. Okay, we're getting something. Bump that gain up even further. Alright, there we go. Okay, so I've got it set to separate mountains, but that's alright, we've got a little valley running through here. Alright, I think that's looking right. Okay, so here's our little mountain. Oh, it's a little bit weird, isn't it? It's kind of got this big dip in it. Doesn't matter, it's going to illustrate our point. Actually, if I turn this off, there we go. Okay, it's because the valley was running straight through the center and then it was trying to drop our edges down. Remember, if we want more of this scene, it's quite convenient to use this. I've shown you this before, but it's quite neat because you can go, okay, well, let's make this 3 kilometers by 3 kilometers. And that's just going to extend it out. Cool, in all directions. Kind of like increasing the canvas. No, we don't want that. Alright, okay, so now we can actually see we've got several mountains in there. Okay. It's a little bit strange, doesn't it? But maybe these are islands or something. I could go through and wipe out a few islands if I needed to, but I don't need to. Let's just grab the sun and move the sun around so it's coming over my shoulder. Yeah. Alright. And maybe we'll lift it up a little bit. Okay. So now we've created this custom dependency. Actually, what I should really do, just good practice. Let's go edit this material. Oops. Edit this function is this is what happens when you go and create that. It shouldn't make any difference in our case. Oh, it did make a little bit of a difference, didn't it? Part of that extend. Oh, it's probably because we had object set. Doesn't matter. This will do us just fine. Okay, so here's our little valley. Now, here's our custom dependency, which is hooked up to rough areas. I'm going to call this rough areas. Otherwise, it would just say custom dependency, which I don't really want. Alright, so here's our little valley, I suppose you could call it. And we'll just lift that up so we can see the whole thing. Okay, that's looking a bit better. Alright, and we've got our texture here. So let's have a look at this texture. And I'm going to edit the function for the color. Delete all this. And now I'm going to say external dependency, or recall dependency, but external dependency is the normal one. And we're going to say procedural terrain, because that's that one there. And rough areas. So now it's pulling in the rough areas, and I'm going to map this to some colors. So I always do this is I map it to colorful, okay, or rainbow. It just means that you can see all of the values coming in and you can quite easily identify ones. So if you want to kind of filter them or something like that, it's quite easy. Alright, and so now we can actually see all of the values coming into this. Let's go and render this to screen. Final render screen. That'll do us. And now we should be able to see all the rough areas on our terrain. And so we could use this to distribute different different materials. So you can see if we kind of made maybe these green areas really rough. So we got, well, that's what they're coming out as rough areas. So then we could kind of play around with that, and maybe we put like a rocky texture in these areas, and in these red areas maybe it's grass or something like that. So, and you can use this in lots of different ways. So you could do it from one texture to another texture. So if there was something that you wanted to output, like the bump map, you wanted to use somewhere else, you could just plug that into a custom dependency and you can load that in elsewhere. So it's very, very convenient. Yeah, so that's about all I want to say about that at this stage. Okay, on to the next thing. Alright, we're now going to talk about plants. So what I'd like you to do is just right click on the little plant up here, the thing that looks like a tree, and you'll see that we've got lots of trees and plants and flowers and grasses and all sorts of things. But what I want you to do is just find a tree. I think we'll start off with the plum tree. Hit OK. and boom. Now yours might not look absolutely identical to this, and I'm going to talk about why that is. You see, view plants aren't just static polygonal models. In fact, you might even find some in here actually. Let's go into the objects. Oops, not safe. We go in here. I think there might be some static plants in here. Oopsies, hope that didn't do anything. Plants. No. Eco objects. So these are all static plants, so they're just like polygonal models, like a car or a chair or a house or whatever. Oh, there was nature. But yeah, so these ones here, if you bring these in, they're always identical. Okay, they're just a whole network of polygons that make up the form of a, in this case, a dead tree. So what's neat is that because this is kind of based on fractal technology, every time we create one, it's always slightly different. It's always keeping within some rules. You can kind of see there's these basic rules happening, but they're all unique. The other great thing with the way that Vue generates these is that we can create billions of these, and using that sort of fractal technology, Vue can reduce the amount of detail it has to render for trees that are way off in the distance and increase that detail as they get closer, and it does it seamlessly. So we never see a one polygon tree in the background or something ridiculous. It's and they've done some fantastic work to reduce the flicker and all sorts of things. These are also animated, so when the wind blows, we'll see the branches and the leaves all flap in the wind and that sort of carry on. And they are editable. So let's take here plum tree number 9. If I double click on this, you'll see that we'll get a plant editor, which for some reason you can't change the size of the editor. Don't know why, but oh well, doesn't matter. But you can see we've got some different variables, so let's have a little look at this. On the left hand side here, you can see we've got, in this case, and this will change from plant to plant, but in this case we have a base subset and a trunk subset. Okay, and then you've got all subsets. And what we can do is we can increase the length, okay, of these. So in this case, sometimes you might find it's got branches and other bits and pieces in here. This is a relatively simple one. Okay, so we can take the base and maybe we go and change its length, and you'll see that the base down here gets longer. Okay, so maybe we need to have longer roots for some reason. We can do that. Alright, as you've already seen, there's a texture in here. Yeah, we'll come back to that. And we've got other rules and things. So I think this base subset, we probably don't want to play with that much more, but we can have a look at this trunk. I don't think it's a very well named tree really, because I suppose it's the base, but the trunk actually includes all of the branches. See, so if I go and shrink this down, I'm going to be shrinking everything except for that base now. Okay, let's set that to 0. There's a thing called here fall off, so we can actually you can right click in here, you can move this around so you can kind of see where that's changing. See? Gnarl, which will kind of like warp and twist it and bend it, and you end up with these gnarled up sort of crooked trees. I've learned something new. I didn't realize you could do that. You can spin it. It's very handy. Okay, so if you want, it almost looks like bamboo now if you go really straight. We can increase the diameter. Now notice, see, we'd have to increase the diameter of the base as well, so that's why sometimes it's quite good to do all subsets when it comes to doing something like base. Okay, I've messed it up now. Okay, so all I do is go, okay, well the trunk is plus 32, so we'll make the base plus 32, and that should be fine. There you go, see, so now it all matches up nicely. And we can make it a droopy tree. I don't think I'm making the base droopy. Let's change it back to 0. We'll just go all subsets, just to make life a bit easier. Okay, so we can make this tree droop. We can change the angle. Okay, you can move it around, and you can make a completely different tree. Notice as well we've got control over the leaves. Now actually, is it going to? No, I was hoping I could be able to see the actual boards that these trees are on. So this is actually the leaf, okay? In fact, I would normally put that there. So that's kind of like where the leaf attaches. Then it's got these like little branches. So these are actually just an image. And you'll see that we can change the length of these. So it's actually making, it's actually a little board. I just thought that you might be able to actually see that somehow, but it doesn't look like you can. If I change this material to something else, let's say, actually not that one, sorry, this one. There you go, I'll do this, I'll invert the alpha, and so then it'll be an inverse. You can actually see now that all it is a picture being attached to our branches, okay? And you can do things, so when you go and change this length, okay, you're just making these pictures longer. Okay, go the other direction, you're going to make them shorter. Also the width, randomness, so it's going to randomize the things more. Flexibility, so that will make them blow around in the wind a lot more. Okay, and they'll droop a bit more, and we can curl them, so it's going to like sort of bend them like as if you were sort of bending a piece of paper. Okay. We should start bending in the opposite direction. So yeah, kind of convenient. I'll just invert this again so it looks like a normal. Okay, so it does mean that if you get too close to this tree, you will all of a sudden realize that the leaves are infinitely thin. But for the most part, it looks very realistic. It does mean that you could actually make up your own tree, because all you need to do is create this image. Okay, so you could go and take a photo. Notice here it's kind of splayed out, and I've done this before. I did it with a Ko-Fi tree. So I took some photos of the Ko-Fi tree branches and leaves, and then I just kind of photoshopped it together, so I got this similar sort of pattern. It works quite well, so that you get these kind of splaying off in different directions. But it could just be one leaf. Although having a whole bunch of leaves is quite good, because it just makes them look a little bit more realistic. But let's have a look at some of these other plants. Let's just delete this one. Let's have a look at something like something kind of different, maybe like a coconut tree or something. Mexican palm tree. Coconut tree. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, coconut tree. Alright, this coconut tree is huge. So let's go in and edit it. How high is this tree actually? Let's just have a look in here. See, it's 20 meters high. Okay, so maybe we don't want something that's that tall. There we go. So it's made it half the size. Now let's have a little look at. See, it's got its leaves. It's got two sets of leaves in this case. It's got this leaf, which if we open it up, you'll see that. So that's where it's attached, and it's going out. And there's our alpha. Okay, and then it's also got dead leaves, which is actually the same thing with a different color, which are these ones under here. Okay, so if we wanted to make these longer, you'll see them popping at the bottom. Maybe we reduce their width a bit. Okay, you got also these leaves in here. You can play around with those. You can't change everything in here. You'll notice that there's like a lot of variation in the length of these. And to do that, you'd need a program called the Plant Factory, which E.ON is just releasing at the moment. I think it might be in pre-release. I've been beta testing, and I don't know how long they've had this program, the Plant Factory, but it is awesome. It's really cool. So yeah, but you can build these trees, and you've got control of all the math and everything behind it, which is awesome. So by all means, have a look at E.ON's website and check out the Plant Factory. It is a neat program. There's other programs for making these trees, of course, but there's like Speed Tree and Tree Pro and all sorts of stuff. But generally, they will make polygonal based trees, and so they're great for static trees that are sitting in the foreground. But the Plant Factory will do ones that work really, really well within view as well. But it doesn't mean that you can't come in here and just modify these until you get the look that you want. And a lot of time I will as well, because like this bark of the coconut tree looks terrible. If we render that up, Well, that's not too bad, but maybe I want to change it to be a displaced surface. Kind of a silly idea really, because it's probably going to increase my render time horrendously. Yeah, but there we go. And so now I can go at render, and there is my displaced surface. Okay, so you can have a lot of fun with these things. I'm actually surprised I haven't done too badly. So we can go edit that material and go, that was too extreme. Let's just reduce the quality boost and maybe make this 0.5. Okay, at render. So yeah, so a good idea if you have got a custom tree like a Ko-Fi tree or a cabbage tree or something like that, is you find a tree that's kind of similar, and then just start modifying its textures and these lengths and everything, and you can really start to get something that you're after. Putakawa's, good luck. I've tried that before. It's very hard work. Anyway, let's have a look at how we can place these. I'm just going to delete that one. Okay, so obviously we can place these individually, and each time we get a new iteration. Oh, sorry, I also should have said that we can save these as well. Okay. In fact, when you're in here, if it's like you've got a whole bunch of it's like, it's got all the right settings, I just don't like this particular one. You just pop into here and go new plant, okay, and it does another iteration if you like. So every time you hit it, and it's actually a very good idea, especially if you start messing with things, is that you keep hitting that just to see what all the different iterations are going to look like. We can see what this is going to look like with wind. Will it preview it? I thought it did preview, but no, maybe not. Overall sensitivity, so you can adjust how it reacts to it anyway. We can save, so this is like its genetics if you like, so we can save it, and we can also load in another tree species. Okay. Churn. So now you can see this one. You can see how it works. Where its bark comes from. See, in this case, it doesn't have any subsets for either, so you can't change them. But you can still change the materials, obviously. And if you like this one, you can actually save this out as an object, so then it wouldn't change. So you might have been sitting there playing around, and all of a sudden you just get this amazing tree, and you're just absolutely stoked with it. You can save it out, and it will save it as a polygonal model. So you could then take that into other programs. Actually, that's a good point. Can you convert it here as well? No, but you could actually export that out anyway. In fact, you can do that with anything. So if I go right click and go file, export object. I know it's a little bit off topic, but so you can export it as a 3ds, Cinema 4D, DXF, Lightwave, OBJ. I usually use OBJ or 3ds. Most programs will read one of those two formats. Alright. So, what else can we do? Whoops. We can get very close. Let's just, we'll delete these trees. Alright. Let's look at our little painter up here. So if we just click on this, we get this ecosystem painter. Alright, and we can load in objects here as well. So let's go and load in, well, let's load in our plum tree. In fact, we can load in a few things. Let's load in some rocks. And what else? Oh, we can load in objects as well. A pumpkin head. Alright. Now, of course, I mean, you're probably saying again, well, couldn't I just use an ecosystem? And yes, you can. The ecosystem painter, though, is basically a way of being able to just use a brush stroke to paint out an ecosystem. Okay? Now, obviously, we need some constraints here. I've just gone and done 2 swoops with my cursor and created 720 different objects. Whoa, but lethal. We can delete all that. Now, let's just go and look at this view, right? And we're going to create... I'm going to create a little train. It's going to be a tiny little train, though. It kind of ended up in the middle of a little valley, isn't it? But yeah, I still want to make this much smaller. Let's see here. So the size will be, let's make it 200 meters by 200 meters by about 30 meters. Okay. So it's still a bit rough, really. Let's make 10 meters. Okay, so we've got kind of like a little hill, if you like. Whoopsies. And I've just painted rocks, pumpkins, and plum trees everywhere. Let's just delete that. I'm just going to close this for a second, so I can move this over to somewhere I can see it. And we'll just lift this up. Alright. So here's my little terrain. I'm going to drop another object on here just for demonstration purposes. So here's a little cube. And I'll just move that into our scene. Okay, so maybe that's like a little concrete platform or something. Alright. And bring up our ecosystem again. Now, what you'll notice, let's just fit this to view. Actually, I could just go frame all. Oops, it's going to frame my sun as well, which I'm not that interested in. Let's just close this again. Select these guys. Frame selected objects. There we go. I'll just zoom out just slightly. Can't seem to. Well, that'll do anyway. Alright. So here's our ecosystem painter. Now, when I go and paint on here, of course, it's going to paint over everything. And that's cool. That's where it goes beyond our ecosystem, of course, because if I had an ecosystem, I could only attach it to whatever material it was attached to. I can also do things like, let's just go and reduce my brush flow. So that means that when I go and paint, I'll make this brush a bit bigger. It's doing it a lot slower. There you go. See, so I'm kind of 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 instances, okay? And it's just spreading them all out. I can also say, well, that's cool, but I didn't actually want any pumpkins. I just wanted plum trees. So I can delete that. Say pumpkins, and see it's got down to the bottom here. It says paint what? A bit of everything, only selected items. So that means I can say, well, let's hold down the shift key actually. Oh, sorry, the command key. No, come on. Command. I want to paint both of these things. So that means that now I'm going to be painting plum trees and rocks, but not pumpkins. Okay, we should see it. We could do it actually in any view here as well. Okay, so if I want to do that in here, I can. Okay, and I can plant trees wherever I want. Alright. And so, well, that's all cool. However, what if I only actually wanted them to appear on my terrain? Yes, I could do an ecosystem, and I'll show you a system. I'll show you something with ecosystems later. However, what we're going to do is we're just going to select the procedural terrain, and then I'm going to say restrict to selected objects. So as soon as that's clicked, that means if I go and paint out here, nothing, something shouldn't end up on my, although it's, yes, it's going underneath it, but so I'm only allowed to put plum trees and rocks onto my terrain. Cool. Let's just delete all that. Now fall off. Actually, I'll just pump up the brush radius. Oh no, sorry, not the brush radius. Yeah, that's a good size. Pump up my brush flow. At the moment, actually I just want to deselect that so I can see it a bit clearer. I'm just going to click once. Come on, click once. I want to make sure it's on populate. Oh, that's a bit weird, isn't it? Oh, I can't. Oh, because I've got that switched on. There we go. Okay. Delete that. Click once. So that's without fall off set to 1. If I set this to fall off 0 and click once, you should see that we get more. Sort of this one's more even. It's actually really difficult to see, really, isn't it? Let's just try this with. Let's just try this with rocks and go delete. Okay, if I just click here. Okay, so that's at 0, and if we go 1, we should see Yeah, see, so this is more of an even distribution, and this is more clustered towards the center, so that's what our fall off is doing. So if you don't want to have really heavy edges, okay, you don't want to see the line across the edge, you would change that to fall off as 0. Okay, if you wanted a wall, basically, you want a very straight edge across that, then you go like that, and you should see that we're getting this even sort of amount of rocks right out to the edges. Alright. We can change the scale, of course, and it's also actually that limit density would actually, if I switch that off, it's going to illustrate this more. That's at 1, that's at 0. Okay, so see, look how far these are spaced, and these are much closer. That limit density, I might as well talk about it, means that I can't go overboard. Okay, so if I go and click, it should get to the point of 50%, and then, actually let's just delete that. Let's just drop this right down to illustrate it. 7%. Should get to the point, and then it won't populate anymore. So I've still got my my finger on the mouse button, but it's not giving me any more. Okay, if I uncheck that, so what have we got? 604. If I keep clicking, it's just going to keep populating, and it's just going to keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay. So that's what that limit density is. So it can be quite handy. Scale, well, pretty self-explanatory really. Small rocks, big rocks. Okay, small rocks, big rocks. We can also do, we can select stuff. I'll come back to that though. We can erase things. So, for example, let's say we've got a patch of big rocks going through here. I can go through with my eraser. No, I don't want to save my brush. You can save brushes as well. We'll talk about that in a sec. So I can take this brush and I can drop down its radius maybe, and I'm erasing stuff through here. And I can erase stuff through here. That's kind of convenient. Alright. We can do single instances. So I'm just going to make a really big one in this case, just so we can see it. So I go click, and we're just getting single rocks. Okay. There they are. Actually, I'll just talk about something. Where is it? Somewhere it shows me what these are going to look like. Oh, here we go. So I can say, actually these rocks, I want to see these smooth shaded, and now you can actually see the rocks, what they'll actually look like. Now, of course, this does require your computer to be grunty enough, well, its graphics card to be grunty enough to display these, because of course this is a lot more work for the GPU, or the graphics. 21 megabyte, if I go and change that back to Billboard, 13 megabytes. Okay, so it just depends on how much RAM you've got on your graphics card, really. So you can do the same thing. So you can do these individually as well. So it might be like, actually, I want to see smooth shaded trees, and now I get to see really detailed trees. Okay. Well, pretty well detailed. They won't render like that. All right. So it's quite convenient. We can change the color of things. No, I don't. See, these are actually individual brushes, which actually, if you right click on here, is it? No. Where is it? There should be a brush editor somewhere actually. Ah, is it new? Yeah, show brush editor. Okay, so you can actually create your own brushes. See, there's that fall off I was talking about. Hug underlying object, interactively move instances while painting. There's all sorts of things in here, and so all of these are actually just this, and it's going to be doing certain things. Okay, so if I go and close that color, if I go and open up Erase, you can actually see, so by double clicking, how the fall off looks. Okay. You can put masks in there, so if you wanted to, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but yeah, but you can have it so that maybe when you go and drop down rocks, it goes into the shape of a bear claw or something. Kind of weird, but yep, you get the idea. And you can save these. So if you come up with a really cool brush, you can save it. And if you want to know how these work, you can kind of look at this and go, oh, what the heck? How does this work? Yeah, so it's got some spacing and a radial brush. You know, so there's all sorts of stuff in there. Okay. Anyway, I just want to go through some of these. We can scale stuff. So like maybe we decided actually I want these rocks, you know, and this pile over here to be bigger. So I can say, yeah, 1.5 times. And so then as I paint in here, I'm just going to be adding 50% to their size, which will probably make them blow out pretty quickly. Come on. Going a bit slow, isn't it? Let's just change this back to billboards. It should be making it bigger. Oh. Only selected item. It's only going to make trees bigger. It's not going to make rocks bigger. See? Making my tree bigger. So if I set a bit of everything, it will just do anything. It will become bigger. Cool. If it's like, it's going a bit slow, this is boring, up this. Okay, and it's going to start growing them much quicker. You could also increase the brush size. Cool. So I'm making these rocks over this size larger. Cool. Oh, sorry, actually I didn't really finish talking about the colour, did I? Let's say we wanted to make some rocks orange, and actually I'll show you. This is this select thing. So let's say we wanted to select all of the rocks around the edge here. So you can do this. Okay. And so that's our new selection. You can save selections and stuff. So now when I go through, you can say, is it this one? Restrict to selected instances. So it's very similar to that object. That means that now when I go and paint, I'll only be painting these rocks that are selected. I'm just going to increase my radius of my brush. There we go. So they should be changing to be orange. It's probably doing a hue shift on it, so not entirely sure what's going to happen. They should come out orange. It depends on the material. You get some different effects happening. Okay, if we don't want that, we just turn that off. If I wanted to save the selection, I can. Okay, so I've selected selection 999. Interesting, isn't it? Let me rename it. There we go. Demo 1. Cool. Don't know why it says minus 999, but it does mean though that now I can go through select. I'll just deselect. No, come on, is it this one? Alright. Why won't it let me deselect now? Oh, deselect all. There we go. So if I wanted to select my demo ones, I can just click on that again and go select all. No, deselect. Come on. There it goes. So I can get that selection back again. Alright. Scale lean, but weird. No, we don't want to save the brush. Okay, we can make them lean over. So maybe we're doing some sort of landslide and we want to show some trees falling over. We can. Drag. This is kind of cool. We can drag all these rocks around. Move. So this will actually just kind of move them all. So it's like, I need all these to move in a bit. You can actually move them in. Notice I'm getting little breaks though. So they're kind of convenient. Jitter position. So it's kind of like, yeah, these are kind of cool, but I just don't like the way that they're done. You can just kind of do this and it just kind of moves them all around a little bit. So they're all just kind of changing the position. We can jitter the orientation. So in this case, it's not really going to make much sense. maybe if we had some big pumpkins in here. So let's say I've got some single instances of huge pumpkins. I'll put them. You can go above this. So let's say we said 50. Too big. 20. Let's go undo. That's not a pumpkin. That looks like a rock. Because I've got a bit of everything. Undo. I only selected item. There you go, pumpkin. And I want to make that smooth shaded so I can actually see the pumpkin. Okay, it is actually jittering the orientation anyway. That's actually kind of interesting. I would have thought it would be all facing the same way. But if we didn't like the way that we're doing, we can go jitter orientation. Okay, and you can kind of see them moving around. Okay, so it's just kind of, there we go. We can attract things. I'm just going to put this back to everything, which means that, let's say we kind of like this, but we need it kind of to pull up in the middle like a pile of rocks. So we can actually pull all those in. They will, in this case, they actually end up on top of it, well, within each other, which isn't that cool. Okay, but we can sort of pull these in. The magnet does a similar sort of thing, where it's kind of pulling stuff in. It kind of goes like as if it was like magnetic circles, though. It's kind of weird. You should be able to get it working a little bit better than that. If you hold it in one place, actually let's up this brush flows just to exaggerate the effect. It's not going to do it now, is it? There we go. Yeah. But, so it's kind of working. Should kind of affects the orientation and everything as well. Kind of bizarre, eh? It's like it's sucking it in. What else have we got in here? Grid alignment. So this is supposed to align it to a grid. There you go. See, so I can go through and it will align to a grid. We can rake it, which does a similar sort of thing. If we go through here, we should see it working. Kind of makes a line. Sort of. And ripple. Yeah, I mean, you can play around with the rest of these. Lower and raise, so we might want to, maybe we need to raise our pumpkins a bit. There we go. Again, I could restrict this so it was just pumpkins and not anything else. I can lift them all the way up in the air, of course, as well. Okay, so now it's floating in the middle of the air. It's raining pumpkins. Tornado, which will kind of just mess them all up, throw them around. It's almost like a spiral effect. And we can do color and scale at the same time. Alright. Now this is kind of handy as well. Sometimes, like, you've got one of these ecosystems, you just want to do a few test renders. Of course, normally you could hide the material or the object or something, but you can't with this. Well, actually you can hide that, but you can just also hit that little ghosty, which is actually that button anyway, and it just hides it from the renderer. So quite convenient. It's like, I don't want to see it right now, I'll need it later on. You can just hit that little ghosty and it will disappear. Okay. Alright. Next thing I'm going to show you is, in fact, I'm just going to delete. Let's just double click on this again. I'm going to trash this. Alright. Let's create an ecosystem like we've done in the past. Okay, ecosystem. So again, I'm going to say, new plant. Yeah, plum tree. Yeah, new rock. Yeah, beige rock. So it's the same thing basically. Pumpkin, yeah. So here's my three things in my ecosystem. Now, of course, I can go through and I can change the density and all that sort of carry on. And I can say populate, and it will populate it. Now, I can do two things here. I could say, well, let's say I don't want to populate, I want to paint this in. And you'll notice as soon as you hit paint, it looks kind of familiar. And we've got one extra button up here anyway. Don't think we've got anything else. Everything else should look the same. So we can restrict to the underlying object. Actually, that's a good point. It should have restricted. It should be one that says something. They did change this recently. There should be something that says to obey the ecosystem rules, but oh well, doesn't matter. So now I can actually go through in here and I can actually paint our ecosystem into it. Actually, I'm going to switch it off. It doesn't seem to be liking it, does it? Come on. Brush radius, brush flow. Oh, might have if I actually hit the populate button. There we go. Cool. And now, see, this is interesting. I've painted outside of it anyway. So it's kind of like, even though this material has got the ecosystem on it, it's like another whole ecosystem painter with another whole lot of settings, and I can control it in a couple of different places, which is kind of nice. Okay, so if I've got this switched on, it will only let me paint wherever that material is being placed. So I could have like another terrain over here, and it will go straight onto that as well. Or I could say just this object, okay, or just this object and just this material. Now this actually has another really important purpose, because imagine if we had a mixed material, right? So I'm just going to make one grey and one pink. Okay, now our pink material is going to have an ecosystem. Okay, notice that it's like a new material. Alright, so there's our pink and here's our ecosystem. So we'll drop a tree in here, we'll do just fine. And let's say that this mixed material is we'll just use the influence of environment. Right. So this is object parametrics. I want the altitude to dictate this. And so actually I don't think that's going to do anything anyway. Why aren't I seeing half pink? I should see it half pink, half grey, shouldn't I? Let's take the slope out of the equation. Object parametric. Okay, let's just up the number of. There we go. Okay, so here we go. So the pink. Actually, I want these around the other way. There we go. So pink, let's say, is an island, and there's going to be like sand and water down here. So I'd only want to paint where this pink material is. Okay, oops. So I go to my ecosystem and I hit paint. Now I need this switched on, because now when I go and paint, it shouldn't, although it has, it shouldn't have let me paint outside of the material. So that kind of sucks. What can I do about it? Well, you can do something, because we could also do it this way and go populate. So now it's populated where the pink area is, and now I can go to paint and just start erasing it. So I might go, well, that's kind of cool, but I want it to make sort of a track through it. So I can reduce my, and I can go and, divide this into two pieces. Just like that. So, yeah, that material thing, it's an underlying object. You see, so that's not any good. We want underlying material, really, don't we? But anyway, you get the idea. But yeah, I'm not sure why, but I used to have a thing that said to restrict it to the ecosystem, but it's gone. Because yeah, you can overpopulate this, and it can kind of be annoying. But anyway, that's how we do it. All right, I think that's probably enough for today. yeah, so have a little play around with what we've talked about, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. In the meantime, you should be working on your material library from assignment number 1, so go and check that out and make sure you're up to speed. Next term we're going to be working a lot with imported objects, and we'll be changing the materials, and your assignment will be along those lines of doing a visualization of an imported object. Alright, till then, see you later.